fight for 15 minutes. This simple metric that any parent can do just to find a chance to be more consistent in what they're trying to accomplish. The pace of society is just too fast. Phones are ringing, all these notifications. Every day, a parent's just trying to survive the day. Movement is energy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Fight for 15 Minutes. I'm your host, Dr. Chen. I'm with Michael Conteh. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Dr. Chen.
Today, we're going to talk about Fight for 15 Minutes. I remember a while ago, we were talking about atomic habit, how to form a habit, and we talk about how the 1% improvement every day is what matters. I still recall the time when we were discussing a clinical case where a parent felt so overwhelmed with the diagnosis of autism, with have to handle so many things at the same time, not to mention, there are some other kids, 2 or 3 children at the same time, not just a child with autism. That's when we start to talk about what we can do to put something in place to encourage parents to form that habit and continue with that 1% of improvement and start to feel much better, not so overwhelmed. So I just want to start with the idea of where would a parent start if you have a parent who felt overwhelmed? What's the first thing they can do?
I love this question because we have thought about this a lot. It's trying to build what is one fundamental that parents can go to no matter where they are in the journey. So whether you just found out your kid got diagnosed yesterday, whether you're on a waiting list, or whether your child's in their 30s and 40s, we want to have kind of a root cause to kind of rally behind. And so what we decided on is this fight for 15 minutes. This simple metric that any parent can do just to find a chance to be more consistent in what they're trying to accomplish. I guess how we define that is the cause of fighting for 15 minutes is just allowing you the time to think, the time to feel, and the time to reflect. Because in this fast-paced world, like you mentioned, multiple kids, there could be a job, there's partners, there's all this stress, worried about the future. I think we really don't slow down enough. And outside of here, even just coaching regular folks, the pace of society is just too fast. The phones are ringing, all these notifications. This is kind of our way of saying, if someone can dedicate 15 minutes of time each day, then that really gives them the time to set a good game plan. Really think of what's working and what's not working. And I think that fundamental is very important for someone to be consistent. And then we all know consistency is where kids can make the most progress.
What is Fight for 15 Minutes and why parents should do this at home?
A parent can decide to fight for 15 minutes no matter what time of day. They probably want to have where they have enough energy to think. So I don't think at the end of a whole long day and you've done all this stuff, I don't know if you have the energy to fight for 15 minutes. And I like the key word. We didn't say think for 15 minutes. We didn't say plan for 15 minutes. The key word in there is fight for 15 minutes. Meaning it is hard. And we do understand it's hard to find 15 minutes to think. So you might have to be creative. You might have to spend your fight for 15 minutes while in the shower or even on the toilet or as soon as your kid goes to bed and you're just gonna have to muster up the energy. But I think that's the important piece. It can't be pushed off consistently. Does it have to be done every day? No, because we are human. We have to get things done. But I think what happens, my thesis is every day, a parent's just trying to survive the day. And then tomorrow they're going to think about stuff. But in that day, they're trying to survive the day. And that happens day after day, happens week after week. And it's hard to know if we are making progress. It's hard to know if our child's making progress. So this is where the earlier you can do it or the freshest you are, meaning you have the most amount of brain chemicals in your head to be a good decision maker, the more you can think clearly and not have all the cloudiness of the day already gone is the best time to start that fight. So you might have to wake up 15 minutes earlier. You might have to, have a partner watch a child for 15 minutes. But I think it's crucial to have this time allocated to really see the progress that you want to see.
I think a lot of parents who are listening to the podcast, when we talk about fight for 15 minutes, the thing come to their mind is fight for 15 minutes for their child. They have to do something with their child to teach their child something. But Michael, from what you just said, I think this is way beyond that. This can be a parent read a book, take a walk, listen to music. and then really including that self-care piece.
Yeah, because without the energy coming from you, it's going to be really hard to donate that energy to your child. And essentially, to me, that's the physics of how one human helps another. It's really the sharing of energy. And so, of course, there's always the analogy in the airplane. You have to put on your mask before you put the mask for someone else. I think the same way of the fight for 15 minutes, most of your 15 minutes is focused on you and finding your ability to channel your energy, assess your energy, and grow your energy. So you might just go for 15 minutes and just dance because you love dancing. Or you might listen to some of your favorite music that pumps you up or calms you down. Maybe it's a little bit of yoga. Maybe it's just journaling or just doodling. There's something about that, and we'll definitely talk about the layers of what that does, but it helps to center you. So now it's easier to say, okay, what is one thing that I can get done with my kid today? It's much easier once you've had this grounding space and really getting the clarity on what needs to be done.
Talking about the energy, I remember being a parent myself. In the morning, you are ready to go. You're like, yes, I got this. And then by the time it's afternoon, you are exhausted. And I can imagine for a mother, a young mother of a child on the spectrum, do you have any advice quickly in terms of how do you keep that energy going?
It is a challenge. And I think it's fair to say that it is really hard to find the energy when sleep is disrupted. Some of it because, children on the spectrum don't sleep well. Sometimes just the anxiety of what's going to happen next. And so I always think, to me, the three fundamentals that can always be relied on are physics, biology, and math. The number two will always be the number two. The second law of thermodynamics, in terms of energy conservation, will always be there. And we are biological creatures, no matter what. So I think the simplest route is trying to lean on any of those fundamentals. Try to sleep better. I know it won't be perfect. Try to make sure you try to have a solid morning routine. And then it's all about the power of experimentation, which we'll talk about later. But it's just saying, okay, how can I put myself in the right mindset? So that's why music's a really good, quick way to put yourself in a proper mood to be in that space for 15 minutes. So it is challenging, but that's why it's only 15 minutes, because we wanted to make it achievable. Something that a parent can look at and say, I can continue to fight for this opportunity. And then with consistency, just see what the value of what this type of mantra can do for you and your family.
Absolutely. Say a parent spend the first week 15 minutes and get into a habit of go for a walk and listen to music and have that momentum going. And then they're ready to start to work with their child, set up a 15 minutes playtime. What can parents do to stay curious about their child and stay curious about the play so that, the interaction does not seem to be so overwhelming and felt like I don't know where to start instead of having a mentality of this is really fun. I'm curious what my kid's gonna do if I do this way.
We're really talking about, I guess, what are the fundamentals behind Fight for 15 Minutes? And definitely the first pillar, as they kind of go in order, is curiosity. And the reason why curiosity is there, it's a very important piece that allows you to observe what your child is doing, observe your own actions, and be optimistic about how they can change. And to me, that is the important piece of curiosity. You have to be able to pause and observe. And this is without judgment. This is without worrying about all the things that can happen. Curiosity goes, why does my kid like to line up the activities? And not with detriment, not with anything, just being curious about and just watching. Being curious about your own behavior. What type of behaviors really, really upset you coming from your child or a partner? What type of things really motivate you in the day that you see success? And I think curiosity it's like a lubricant for evolution. The fact is, yes, no matter what diagnosis your child has, you can evolve to place the right environment to optimize that child. You have to be curious of what that evolution looks like. I think for a lot of folks who get stuck in the, oh my goodness, I am only this way, I'm not able to make change, this is just never going to work. And to me, it creates the closed loop or we would say closed-mindedness. The curiosity keeps your mind open. Hey, my child really loves sensory. All right, let's see what type of things. Is it sensory with their hands? Are they always playing with their ears? Okay, well, if they really like things that are auditory, let's try music one day. Today, I'm gonna play classical music and just observe. That's where it comes into play. It makes it where you can try things without judging them. And so for a lot of parents, we're kind of stuck in that panic or anxiety mode where everything has to be a critique on yourself, critique on the system. And curiosity just brushes all that away and kind of keeps you present. And so that's why it's such an important skill. So it's kind of, why is this the first thing for Fight for 15 Minutes? For a lot of parents, if they can't get to that point of being curious, it's really hard to do the following steps that really helps take this and make it useful for everybody.
So being curious is completely opposite to being panicking or feel anxious about your child.
You want to observe thinking of potential dopamine, meaning opportunities, versus cortisol. Oh my goodness, this is going wrong. And to me, that's the difference. A lot of times parents are observing, but they're critiquing. They're using the judgment part of their brain when they need to use the curiosity part of their brain. And you get to keep reminding yourself. You're going to hear that voice in your head. Oh my goodness, why is he doing this? Try to remove the why. Just be curious. What if I think is a much better way to think about your observation than whys. So whys, just for general, when we ask more why questions, they tend to put judgment on things and people. Ask yourself more what's, ask yourself more where. Where can I put in my house a way for my child to decompress? What type of new tools can I experiment with to see if my child can communicate more? And I think that's a healthier way to look for solutions versus trying to assign any type of blame or just any other things that are not productive to really help a child make progress.
I remember there was a time we were trying to work with a kiddo, like I think 3 years old back then. And then parent got so much anxiety because we were asking parent to say first work, then play.
Mhm.
And then parent asked, they were told that the kid has to transition to the table and work. And I think applying this idea of curious is if the child has a hard time transition from a play area to the table, maybe the first then, what if we just asking him to finish what he needs to do while at the play area? If it's a tracing, hey, you can trace it at the play area. You don't have to come to the table. Can we adjust that strategy? And if we do that, what's going to happen?
In interacting, we've done a lot of therapy with kids. It's amazing how your energy impacts the energy coming with, to a child. And so when we come with nervousness or anxiety or frustration, it's just so much harder to connect.
Yeah.
And if you tell me what curiosity does, it's a connecting tool. It allows you both to be in the journey. That's important, whether you're a parent or a therapist. So when we think about the objective for curiosity, really the objective is, what did you learn about yourself or your child today in an objective way? I think is always a great start. And that pause, observe, and now I think you're able to start to think of some ways to kind of take the next step.
Be creative, do not stuck. There is no such a thing as there's only way of doing this thing. There's multiple ways. And I think, Michael, you're telling parents that to be creative in your thinking and think about multiple ways to doing one thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you give us some real example, just one real example of what this look like for a mother who, remain curious about their child play and have that open-mindedness during the interaction with her child?
As your kid is playing, stand back so your kid has their own space and just watch them for 5 minutes. You're watching, you're not judging, you're just kind of watching. After 5 minutes, see what type of common patterns do you see. Are they vocalizing a lot? Are they using their hands a lot? Are they wandering? And so you're kind of assessing what sensory inputs are they really trying to gravitate towards in their own free play. And in the last 5 minutes, join them in that sensory system. So if they're doing some vocal, maybe you can try some vocal, see if they pay attention. If they're doing tactile, get next to them and maybe you play with some tactile things and then maybe hand them something. But I think that's a really good, neat way of observation, thinking of the one thing to try, and there's 5 minutes of trying something, and then you can take a step back again. And if you have time, you can repeat that process. And so it makes it where you're not feeling you have to have it all solved, but you're just getting little doses. And every time you do that, you're getting more knowledge on what's working and not working.
And the more you do that, the fighting for 15 minutes will look easier and easier.
Yes. Yes, there's less fighting in the 15 minutes.
That's right. We talk about the curiosity being our first pillar. Let's move on to our second pillar, the action. So say if a parent has been doing fighting for 15 minutes, they were able to plan the 15 minutes and then they have an idea what that looks like. And how do they put that into action?
The action step, if I think of one area that parents can definitely get stuck, is not knowing what to do next. And so because you're curious, now you're in the experimentation phase. I think a lot of times we try something, and especially because some of our kids can be a little rigid, we get just this big blow up. So behavior happens, and all of a sudden the parents are afraid to try new things. Action is the ability to say, okay, let me just try this one thing, whether it's a new food, going to a new place, eating anything else but nuggets that come from a fast food restaurant. And so action helps you to know what is actually working versus your brain thinking of scenarios of what's working and what's not. So we are always the biggest fans that movement is energy. So going right back to the laws of physics. You don't have to know exactly what to do, but it's just to try something small and to understand what you're trying to accomplish. It's really that commitment to experimenting. And just allowing you to just keep trying things. And if they don't go as planned, it's not a reflection on you. It's just another data point that helps you to know better how to interact with your child.
Do you have some practical tips for parents in terms of taking actions?
The first step is to kind of have an idea in your head of what you're trying to accomplish. So for instance, it could just say, I want to see how often I can make my child giggle in these 15 minutes. And that's the only metric. And now you're trying to go ahead and work towards that. I think trying to at least just define what you're trying to accomplish in the simplest way. I guess it's being okay with just doing simple things, getting my kid to smile, getting yourself to be calm for 15 minutes. Maybe just sit and, do some sensory things where you guys are doing things together. Maybe just playing YouTube and both of you trying to dance, or you dance and see if your kid, is curious about what's taking place. So I would just start there with some of the simplest ways or the simplest actions, and then see which ones tend to help bond with your child, or at least get your child to pay more attention. Is maybe a good place to start.
It remind me of the modules we're doing, right? Like one new thing each week. And for parents who are listening, we've been launching Imitation Module and Joint Attention Module, and where Michael talking about the small thing, one thing each week. And if you are signed up to our module, you will see some specific task that we suggest that you can do at home, like imitating your child, follow your child lead, things like that. Small things do make a huge difference.